In this video, we're going to explore direct measure. What that means is we're going to look at some measuring devices such as a ruler, a micrometer, and a Veneer caliper. Now, I don't have them in front of me, unfortunately, so all I've got is some pictures. So ideally, you would have these devices in front of you when you are working through them. If I'm asked to find what these measurements would be, first I read to see if I get to 1 yet. So here's where 1 is. Anything before 1 is all going to just be fractions, and anything after 1 will be 1 and however many fractions until we get to 2, and it'll be 2 and however many fractions. So looking at G, we know that in this side, they're telling me is in 30 seconds. So each one of these tick marks represents 1 32nd. 1 32nd, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're marked here at G, so we know here's 8, 9, 10. So G is 10 32nds. But we can reduce this to 5 over 16. We know in the bottom part of this particular rulers, each one of these tick marks are 64ths. So this I is at 24 64ths, because that's where it's being arrowed to. This is 24, and I wrote 26. I just like 6 today. You never know. I'm sketchy. 24 64ths. But this does reduce. So for this, I know that they're both reducible by 2. They're both reducible by 4, I believe. Yeah. So I can reduce them by 4 and, 4, yeah, I can reduce by 4. So this gives me 6 over 16. Oh, but that reduces, I don't know why I was thinking 4. 8 reduces to both of these, so it gives me 3 8s. So we do have to reduce these. So your answer that you would put in is not 24 over 64, it'd be 3 8s. Now let's take a look at this one. Again, every time I pass 1 or 2 or 3, I start my counting of the fractional part again. So the fact that I've passed 1, this one is 1, and then I'm at 16, 17, 18, 19. So 1 and 19 32nds. This bottom one would be 1, and I just have to see where I am. This is 24, 25, 26, 27. So that's 27 64ths. So 27 64ths. And that's as good as that one gets. That isn't going to reduce anymore. Here's one, it's a metric ruler. That in this first one, I have it in tenths. So these are in tenths. And this bottom one is in 100ths. So if I'm asked to figure out, I'm not just doing this another color because I just like colors today. If I'm asked to find my A here, this is 5 tenths, or in other words, 1/2. I have passed 1, so this is 1 and 3 tenths. Notice that when I'm doing this measurement, I count however many tick marks, and I put that tick mark over whatever it is my tick marks represent. In this case, it's tenths, so it's 5 tenths is 1/2, and this is 3 tenths, but I've gone past the number 1. Down here on the bottom part of this measuring device, I would have, these are in 100ths. So here's 1, that represents 10. The halfway mark represents 15. Looks like 16, maybe 17. So it is 17 100ths. So 17 100ths. This D, know that we've passed 1. So this is 10, 20, 30. These, as you notice, line up. But this is in tens, and these are 100ths. So this is 10, 20, 30, and it looks like it's like 35. This one's really hard to read. So it is 35 over 100. Now the 17 over 100 didn't reduce, but the 35 over 100 does. It reduces by a factor of 5. So this is 1 over 7, and 5 goes into 20, or 5 goes into 120 times. So there's that. Now I probably should have talked about units. I'm going to assume these are in inches unless I know otherwise. So the units on these are all inches. And the units up here are in inches. Unless I know otherwise, I'm going to go in inches. Now, this first one is clearly in inches. This one could be in centimeters. Not really certain. I probably have to read. I would assume it's probably in inches, but I'm not really certain. Okay, now let's look at our Veneer calipers. We are assuming that with these that we are in inches, by the way. And the way I read Veneer calipers is I need to know where this 0 lines up to. Now this 0 lines up to some number after the number 2, because this is the number 3. So it's sometime after the number 2, because it's sometime after the number 2, we know that we have 2 inches so far. Then the 0 lines up to something after the 9. So that is the 0.9 inches so far. This 0, where it lines up to, is before this first quarter mark, before this half mark, and before this 75th of a mark. So then that is going to be plus 0.00. And then now I need to figure out where this mostly lines up with. So I'm looking for where these grid marks line up with these grid marks up here. And it looks like the grid marks line up either maybe here at the 7 or maybe here at the 8. So either the 7 or the 8 is where it lines up with. So that would be 0.08 or maybe 0.07. I add these all up and I get 2.908 inches. So let me do that again. I look to see the first time I see this 0. It is somewhere between 2 and 3. That's where the 2 comes from. So it's after 2 but before 3. This 0, this edge of my Veneer caliper. Then I look to see where this 0 lines up with after the 2 mark. Well, it lines up to something after 9, so that 9 represents a tenth, so 0.9. This 0 mark does not line up between this first quarter mark, this half mark, or this 3/4 mark, so that doesn't bring me anything. If it would have lined up with, if this 0 would have came after this quarter mark or came after this 50, the halfway mark, or the 3/4 of a mark, I wouldn't have 0, 0 here. I'd have like 0.25, 0.5, or 0.75. But it doesn't. It's right here in this very beginning. So then the last piece of the Veneer calipers is I look to see where these grid marks line up to the grid marks up above. And then I read that. So the first time they seem to line up is maybe 0.7 or 0.8. Looks like maybe 0.7 or 0.8. So 0.7 or 0.8. So either one of them, you should be able to put either one of those in as an answer. Now, you probably at this point have your own electronic ones, and that's cool, but this is how you'd read ones that do not have the electronic ones. Now let's take a look at the micrometer. With the micrometer, and I know the difference between these two. I know the difference between the micrometer, my first micrometer, and the second micrometer here. My first micrometer, I see the 0, 1, 2, 3. They're going up by whole numbers, not multiples of 5. So this is the English. And this is the metric. And I know it's the metric because, first of all, these are multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15. And these are much more precise than these. So to read the micrometers, we look to see how much is shown on the sleeve. What number is shown on the sleeve? This is the sleeve, this is the thimble. So I look to see which number that I see on the sleeve. The number I see is 2. So that's the first marking. So it is 0.2. Now this is in inches, so it's 0.2 of an inch. Even though I see the 2 there, it's actually 0.2 of an inch. The next thing I'm going to read is how many of these tick marks. This is a quarter, this is halfway, and this is 3/4. Now it looks like I've got 3/4, so I'm going to add to this. Actually, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to add to it 0.075. Looks like I got about 3/4 there. Now I need to read the thimble part, which is this. And this is the closest line that lines up to this, right here. And it looks like it's 10, 11, 12. So I need to add to that the 0.012. So my final answer for this one is going to be 0.2, and that's 7/8, so 7 inches. So again, the way I did this is I looked to see on the sleeve what's the number that is the whole number I see here, which is 2, and that represents 0.2 of an inch. So this 2 represents 0.2 of an inch. Then I look to see how many tick marks. Since that's a 0.2 of an inch, this first tick mark is 0.025, the second tick mark is 0.05, and the third tick mark is 0.075. But the thimble here does not line up onto the 0 mark, so I have to then go even further into my measurements. And my measurement here is the fact that it lines up with the 0.12. So here's 10, 11, 12. So the fact that this is not at 0. If this would have been at 0, my answer would have been 0.275, but it is not. So I have to go even more precise with my measurement, and that is the 0.12. Now let's take a look at this metric one. So with my metric one, I'm going to look to see, these are in millimeters. So these are in millimeters. The first number is 5 millimeters, then 10 millimeters, then 15 millimeters, and then 16, 17, 18. So I know I'm at least 18 millimeters at this point. Now I need to do the second reading. Now these are the halfway marks. So this is 15 and a half, 16 and a half, 17 and a half, 18, and it looks like I might be at 18 and a half, but I'm not quite at 18 and a half. And I know that I'm not quite at 18 and a half because if I was at 18 and a half, this would be at 0. This 0 would line up with this line right here. The 0 does not line up with this line right here. And if I was more than 18 and a half, then I'd see more of this tick mark here, this half mark. So I know I'm not quite to 18 and a half. And where I am, so I line this up with this number right here, which is the 0.44. So that's 0.44 millimeters. And I add this together, and I get 18.44 millimeters. So I hope this has helped.